Thank you, Chang. We return now to our final round of paper speakers this evening. Speaking third in proposition of the motion is Dr. Robert Henderson. Dr. Henderson is a founding faculty fellow at the University of Austin and author of Troubled, a memoir of foster care, family and social class. Described as self-made by the New York Times, he grew up in foster homes in California, served in the US Air Force and later received a BS from Yale and a PhD in psychology from Katz here in Cambridge. Dr. Henderson, you have the floor.
Good evening. The motion before us contends that we should respect our elders. I align myself with this proposition not as a call for uncritical reverence, but rather to acknowledge the limitations of youth and a recognition of the intricacies of the human endeavor that spans generations. I'm a psychologist, not a sociologist or a political scientist or an economist. I generally tend to focus on empirical research about individuals. In order to form a grounded opinion on the motion, it is essential to understand what a large body of research indicates about the psychological and behavioral traits and the differences between young adults and older adults. Many people believe, for example, that advanced age is accompanied by maturity and wisdom. This is reflected in official policies that set age thresholds for driving, military service, voting, drinking alcohol, and holding elected office. For example, the minimum age requirement for head of state is 35 in the United States, 40 in South Korea, and 45 in Singapore. Incidentally, the United Kingdom's minimum age for all elected offices is only 18, an interesting fact that may shed light on why this debate is particularly pertinent in this setting. Moreover, a brief glance at those in positions of power reveal a skew towards older individuals. The average age of a successful startup founder is 42 years old. The media-driven belief that successful founders are typically very young is untrue. The average British MP is 51 years old. The average CEO of a Fortune 100 company is 57 years old. The average age at the time of hire among S&P 500 company CEOs is 58 years old. Yes.
Isn't this proving the opposition's point?
Oh, I'll get to yeah. So the average age of G20 world leaders is 62 years old. The average U.S. senator is 64 years old. The average member of the House of Lords is 71 years old. And the current president of the United States is 196 years old. So these figures demonstrate that older individuals do wield significant power. Does this power translate into respectability? We confer respect to others not just for their power or for their status, but also for their moral character. A study published in the Journal of Business Ethics revealed that younger professionals were significantly more inclined than their older counterparts to endorse ethically questionable behavior, such as using company office supplies for personal use or using company funds for personal holidays. Indeed, young people are generally more likely to take risks that many of us would consider to be morally dubious. Even after controlling for socioeconomic status, younger adults are more likely than older adults to shoplift, commit assault, and drive while drunk, among other crimes. So it's worth noting here that younger adults tend to score more highly than older adults on what are known as the dark triad personality traits. So in the realm of personality psychology, the dark triad encompasses three distinct yet interrelated traits. There's psychopathy, which is characterized by callousness and a profound disregard for others. Narcissism, marked by an inflated sense of self-entitlement, and Machiavellianism, which involves strategic exploitation and duplicity for personal gain. Study after study shows that these traits tend to peak in the late teens and early 20s and then gradually decline with age. So while the potency of youth might initially sustain these antagonistic and hostile traits, they tend to dampen and diminish as individuals grow older. In stark contrast, studies have found that older age coincides with the light triad personality traits, which encompass three factors. So there's first, faith in humanity, which reflects the belief that others are generally good and worthy of trust. Second, there's Kantianism, which denotes the propensity to behave with honesty and integrity. And lastly, humanism, which involves a genuine appreciation for the success of others. Older people tend to score higher on these light triad traits relative to younger adults. And this distinction was illustrated in a 2021 study that found that older adults were more likely to share positive gossip about other people, while younger adults were more likely to spread negative, reputation-damaging gossip about their peers. And supporting this pattern of behavior, developmental criminologists have documented what is known as the age crime curve. This curve shows a peak in the likelihood of committing a crime during adolescence and early adulthood, and subsequently it declines with age. And notably, younger age remains a significant predictor of crime even after socioeconomic status is controlled for. For example, in the United States, after controlling for these factors, a 20-year-old man is still 10 times more likely to commit a violent crime than a 60-year-old man. Beyond overt legal transgressions, younger adults are more deceptive in their everyday lives than older adults. There was a comprehensive study in 2015 of more than 1,000 individuals aged 6 to 77, which found that young children and elderly adults were the least likely to tell lies, while young adults aged 18 to 29 were the most likely to engage in deception. And they also displayed the greatest proficiency at formulating believable lies. Finally, there's research in behavioral economics, which underscores age-related differences in cooperative behavior. Older adults tend to behave in a less self-interested and more altruistic manner than younger adults. A 2012 study analyzed 287 interactions on the popular British game show Golden Balls, in which two strangers play a large-stakes, one-shot prisoner-style dilemma game, a prisoner's dilemma-style game to win money. And only 42% of contestants younger than age 30 chose to cooperate, compared with 65% of contestants 65% of contestants older than 50 years of age. Yes.
Doesn't that mean that like young people are playing the game more rationally than most modern?
So more rationally, but in the economic sense, more rationally tends to mean more self-interested, more selfishly.
You're going to play the game. I mean, I study economics. I know the studies are
Yeah.
Basically, what you're saying is young people played the game better than old people.
Well, they played the game in a more self-interested sense. So what does better mean? Does it mean in a self-interested way? Because again, when it depends on what better means. So when both individuals cooperate, actually, that's better, right? Because both end up having a larger payout. Right. So anyway, the findings thus far reflect greater selfishness and suspicion on the part of younger people. There's other research along these same lines. A recent survey from the Pew Research Center in the U.S. Revealed that 71% of adults younger than age 30 agree that most people would try to take advantage of you if they got a chance, compared with only 39% of adults older than age 65. Moreover, adults younger than age 30 were twice as likely to agree that most people can't be trusted, compared with adults older than 65. And so the studies considered thus far consistently show that older adults are generally more ethical, more cooperative, and more trusting than younger adults. Yeah.
Arguably, don't see that reflects that younger people live in a much tougher world than everybody who's older.
So most of the studies that I've seen, even when you control for income and socioeconomic status, education, and all of those kinds of things, younger adults still behave in a more self-interested way. They tend to still express more suspicion toward others. And so I'm getting to some of this too. So in my own research, which I completed as part of my doctoral thesis, I analyzed multiple large data sets from here in the UK, the US, and globally. And the findings were unequivocal. Older adults consistently rated moral violations more harshly than younger adults. So for instance, younger adults deemed actions like tax evasion or theft as more permissible compared with older adults, and this age difference remained even when controlling for income and education. And more strikingly, younger adults rated physical violence to be more permissible. I'm just going to continue, including political violence, child abuse, and spousal abuse. So this is initially surprising that younger adults rated things like child abuse and spousal abuse to be more permissible than older adults, but it is consistent with all of the prior work indicating that older adults tend to be less inclined toward violence and unethical behavior. So it's reasonable to approach any individual study with some degree of skepticism. However, in the aggregate, all of the research points in the same direction, that younger adults display a greater propensity for deceit, manipulation, and selfishness compared with older people. So should we respect our elders? I want to briefly discuss here the question of wisdom. The very fact that we can even ponder this proposition suggests that we live in a society of relative comfort, a luxury secured through the efforts and decisions of previous generations. In many cultures where survival is a daily struggle, respect for elders is not just a value, but a necessity. It is only in societies. Yes?
Is that not just due to the natural resources that we've managed to benefit from, the fact that they acted
We've passively benefited from this. I think that there were older people, previous generations, that were able to take those resources and shape them in a way that would benefit all of us.
But them acting selfishly and rationally
is just a thing that they do naturally and that other people do. The fact that they managed to stumble into better resources doesn't mean that we should be grateful for that. It's just that we got lucky, surely.
Okay. Oh, 1 minute remaining. Okay. So, achieved a certain level of safety and material prosperity thanks in part to the wisdom and sacrifices of older generations. So it is only when this occurs that people begin to question and reproach those who laid the foundations of their historically unparalleled comfort. So my suspicion is that the majority of young people who feel aggrieved by the actions of past generations are not self-aware enough to ask themselves a simple question. If you were born in the exact same year as your parents or grandparents, immersed in precisely the same milieu, the same economic incentives, the same cultural memes, would you have acted any differently? You and your towering intellect who can barely operate a motor vehicle and can't even navigate an unfamiliar city or get a date without using a piece of technology invented by a boomer in 2007, you are fooling yourself if you think you can overlook the accumulated knowledge of those who came before you, including the careful study of their errors and their missteps. Not all old people are wise, but almost all wise people are old. I'm 33 years old, a decade or so older than many of the people in this room. I grew up in poverty and then the squalor of the foster care system in Los Angeles. I started working for minimum wage when I was 15. I joined the US Air Force when I was 17. And by the time I was 23, I traveled to more than a dozen countries. I deployed twice. I'd been arrested once. I'd lived a lot of life by that point, and I learned a lot, but I knew only a fraction of what I do today. My point is not that you should respect me, but rather that we should all start from a position of respect for the people who have lived more life than us. You are all likely more worthy of respect than you were when you were 13, and with time, this trend will continue. Only by respecting elders enough to listen to how they made their decisions, including concentrating on where they might have gone wrong, can we hope to do any better than them. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.